Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, July 30th and we're starting almost on time, just a little bit late. The Fire Festival abruptly ended. We got screwed basically, is all I can say. Out of at least one daily quest that could have been double the gold. They're really punishing anybody who didn't play every single daily quest that was available as soon as possible. They didn't, to my knowledge, say anywhere when the Fire Festival was going to end. So seems like there was no warning. If they did mention it, it was in such a small and obtuse way that I certainly didn't see it. But that's just a small gripe, and it's hardly like I'm not rolling in dust at this point and gold for basically everything. And this is the Asian account we're on right now. I'm just trying to mark things off while we're at it. I did have a watch and learn, but if it was on this account, I must have opened the pack just blindly without even thinking about it. So that may have been the new cards I was just looking at. Interesting. Just need a Paladin and Priest victory and we're good to go. Time flies. It's the 30th already. Like, time flies if you're having fun or if you aren't. Particularly when you're an older adult. It just happens. As for this weekend, I took one day off to basically go to a museum and had fun there. I hadn't done that in a very long time. And then that was Saturday, and then Sunday my insomnia issue is still not where I'd like it to be, but it's kind of fixed. I'm in a very odd position now where I'm falling asleep around 10 or 11, waking up at about midnight, and then falling asleep again about 6, and then waking up about 2. So that's not terrible.
We have turned our curse into our strength.
That's not. Also, those numbers don't really equate to 2 equal 4-hour sleep cycles either, but ideally you would want, or at least I would want, just to be like a normal person, to sleep for 8 hours in one set cycle, which is 2 or 3 sleep cycles, but that's not happening. So on Sunday I woke up, I think around midnight, and I started playing Borderlands 2 again. Very weird to get back to playing Borderlands 2, considering that it's been so long. Let's see, if I do this, that's 4, that's 5, and if I do this, this is 4, 5, 6. If I do this, then it would be 5, 6. Like, I don't think anything works. Like, he's just 1 health too high. If somebody sees a solution there that would have caused, let me kill that guy, let me know in the chat. Man, what's going on here? I managed to break my magnetic charging cable, which is probably about the 4th or 5th time I've done that. I took some of the old ones I tried to use and tried to open them up and see if I could get the magnets out of it. And if you ever have small magnets encased in metal shells that are not designed to be removed, let me tell you, you're never going to get it out of there without breaking the magnets. So, yeah, wasted a bunch of time doing that. Spent some time working on the Raspberry Pi computer I'm trying to build for myself. The computer part, it's fine. It's the wooden box I'm trying to put it in that's the problem. Cutting things, making them look nice. The wooden box I'm using is not, it's not thick, good wood that you could drill through and then finish. So I've chipped off some edges. I'm gonna have to probably put some vinyl over it, and that is all stuff that is really out of my wheelhouse as a person who really only was interested previously in the outside of things. Well, no, the inside of computers, the programming, trying to do anything that's physical, that's in the real world, that's in meat space, as some people call it. It's just not a skill I have or any experience with. But that's the whole point of the project too, is to, you know, try something different and see if you can do better or worse. But yeah, I definitely made some mistakes there. As part of the Raspberry Pi thing, I was soldering up some really small speakers and trying to get enough power into the speakers and the computer from a like 2500 milliamp 5-volt transformer plug that would be fine for the computer by itself, but the speakers taking more wattage definitely are draining it, so I'm gonna have to step up to a much bigger supply of power to power it. A bigger transformer, something closer to a laptop's big brick, or the back of an Xbox 360's big power brick, instead of a small cell phone charger style transformer. The speakers are really small, so they're inherently not that good or that loud, but for the job they kind of work. But you do run into issues certainly of then the set that I bought from Amazon is just the speakers and a volume knob and an amplifier built into a little circuit. And the circuit board had such tiny through-hole connections to solder to, it did not work at all. It was a nightmare to try and find any wire that would even fit through the hole. It's really small gauge. And I was trying to use the broken cell phone cords as the wires, and that didn't work, and so then I reverted back to solid copper wiring from inside of a network cable, because I have lots of that sitting around.
Your magic shall not save you.
So,
reporting for duty.
Yeah, if you're trying to wire anything, if you're having trouble stripping wires, which I definitely was, because I don't have any kind of wire stripper that's good, use networking cord. Go get some Cat 5e, Cat 6 probably at this time. I don't think you need anything higher than that. But use networking cord. Inside of a networking cord, you're going to have at least 8 wires for the length of the sheath cord that you could use, or you can take that sheath on the outer part out and you can use that as a use it as a reason or excuse to
I don't need any of you.
What was I saying? Man, I'm losing the thread. What I'm talking about. Networking cord, yes, very good. They're pre-twisted wires, which for speakers, not a bad thought. I think. Actually, maybe it's a terrible thought to have twisted wires. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe I should go and twist the wires. Ooh, that would be a little difficult, but I could probably pull it off.
Your magic shall not save you.
Yeah, the speaker might sound incredibly better with untwisted wires. So, wiring your own sound system to a Raspberry Pi and also attaching a touchscreen. Attaching a touchscreen is a project that was intended to be able to be done, whereas doing the sound is straight from nothing. I had to cut a cell phone headset which had the microphone thing, so I had a appropriate type of connector on it. Although honestly, since I was just using audios, I could have just cut headphones and wired the headphones in, because the microphone wire isn't getting used anyways. And it didn't come with a volume knob, so I'd have to add that later too, or just stick with the bare metal. So I'm in the middle of that project, and I did a little bit of that on Sunday earlier before I started playing Borderlands. It's kind of ironic and appropriate that I'm not really talking about Borderlands 2. It's hard to get back into that game. I did a mission where I'm effectively killing the Ninja Turtles, and I did a lot of menu hero of just organizing guns. I'm moving the story forward. I'm about to the point where I meet Tiny Tina. I'm in the area. I think when you run into Tiny Tina, that's the beginning of the fourth quarter of the game, of the main story at least. I'm at level 16. I imagine I'll be somewhere close to level 25. Maybe by the time we're done with the main story. Maybe even higher when all the DLC is done. I don't think I'd ever want to do a New Game Plus, however. It's going to be really, really hard to make the justification to do a New Game Plus on any of the Borderlands games, unless they just literally Gearbox drags their feet and never gets around to releasing Borderlands 3. That would be the one thing, is that Borderlands 3 just never comes out, so you've got plenty. You would have an infinite amount of time to play Borderlands 1, 2, and the pre-sequel. It's hard to even make a justification to do New Game Plus on Borderlands 2, because Borderlands the pre-sequel kind of is just even more Borderlands 2. And it is mostly, from what I've heard, kind of negatively compared just because it's not innovative and not really doing anything new with the story. It's a weird game to have been released, certainly. And then they're in a weird position where 2K Games may just not care, and Gearbox may not care. So there might be two people who are in charge of that IP, and they may not be interested or heavily invested in releasing Borderlands 3. Although I think they are. They should be. Randy Pitchford, we'll have several stories about him. He really just makes stories about himself. Maybe that is the trick to Randy Pitchford, is that he makes controversy and gets people talking about himself enough to promote himself. I mean, certainly that's what a lot of shock rockers and shock radio heads do. Nobody would know like who Marilyn Manson probably was, as well, very fewer people would know if Marilyn Manson didn't promote himself very well by causing controversy. Here's a YouTube thing about commenting and moderating comments on your channel. Which inherently, when YouTube tells people how to moderate comments on their channel, that is just an admittance that YouTube is not doing anything to help you there. It's questionable whether they should do something to help you there. I think inherently YouTube kind of is this weird sort of social media service, and they should moderate some spam and some things just through automation, but also there's a lot of people that don't want very much moderation, like me, and there's a lot of people who want no moderation, which I think is probably asking, putting too much faith in the YouTube commenting world, and just it's not even the YouTube community, it's just spammers that go on every website to put spam everywhere. They exist, so they need to be moderated. And then certainly there are also people like Susan Wojcicki, for example, who has been accused of muting and turning off thumbs down on her own YouTube videos, which inherently, why is she making YouTube videos at all? I get the idea of being familiar with the product and such, but inherently we'd like her to be working and doing something people actually wanted to do, instead of doing a bunch of things nobody wants her to do. Turning YouTube into a TV broadcast channel. I think we have a decent amount of news today, so I should get into some of that. Definitely. What I was going to say about Randy Pitchford, though, is turns out he's on the board of Fig, and I did not realize that. Also, he tweeted Twitter asking them to add a way for him to censor or mute comments on people, which I have had a thought to reply to that comment to Twitter and say, hey Twitter, please don't listen to this guy. But basically what he wants to do is he wants to make an echo chamber out of Twitter, which is inherently what a lot of people, and maybe a lot of the people that made Twitter big in the first place want. But they can go make their own server, certainly, and if Twitter does just become this echo chamber where any dissenting opinion can just be quickly automatically blocked, which is inherently what the video game news media did, where they made an automated list of people that they didn't like and started blocking those people from seeing their messages and from replying or commenting on their messages. And then inherently also they have ways, dummy accounts, in which they still watch what the people they're blocking are saying, so that they can get a one-way flow of information and use it to attack those people. Which for a video game journalist is completely inappropriate. Like, pretty much, if you were working for me and I was running a newspaper, like let's say a big old newspaper like New York Times, let's just pick, I would tell every employee that your public profile Twitter account has to be open. Everything you say has to be seen by everybody. And if there's somebody harassing you or giving you trouble, you have to report that person through something like HR. And they literally have to be doing the same process that you would do if somebody was harassing you or threatening you in the real world. Keeping a file, reporting it to the authorities, and then HR would be the ones in charge of blocking somebody. But to have the personality themselves at a newspaper say, I'm gonna stop people from seeing my news, when your job is to inform all of the public, is a crazy thought, in my opinion. It's a shame you can't silence away summoning sickness. But moving on, I suppose we might as well start covering the news. PC Gamer has an article, Why BioWare's game inspired a unique kind of fandom. It is a odd experience. Because there certainly were people that were into, I believe, the Dungeon Siege series, Dragon Age series, and like the early ones, and I think it just probably hit a generation of people at a certain age. I certainly know and understand the idea of being crazy obsessed and a hyper fan. I was certainly one of that for Nintendo when the NES came out, but inherently BioWare also fails to maintain traction. Like, you run into older newer versions in the series, and they're not as great. Like Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect Andromeda, Dragon Age Inquisition. I don't think those satisfied their target audience as much, or maybe not even. Maybe I shouldn't say target audiences. I don't think it satisfied their fan bases that much. Having said all of that, while I was speeching and just riffing off the title, it seems like this entire article is written by a lady who happens to be LGBTQI, and she is approaching it from that aspect. I know there was definitely some adding of features in the BioWare games to accommodate that, and that is great. I don't think that there's probably a valid argument to be made to say that Mass Effect Andromeda or any of their games suffered by having those options, or the fact that you could play as a femshep or anything like that really changed the story or made it any different. Inherently, all the games that BioWare have made have been generic, what they call Ludo characters. This is a new phrase I've heard and I'm going to start using more, which Ludo characters means they are characters that really don't have characterizations like in a movie or story. They are just there for the player to put themselves into it. And so that feature is nice. And I don't, on the other hand, really even think that there's enough evidence to make the argument that this was BioWare pandering. I think this was simply, it was an easy thing to do, to not have to program characters to have specific sexual orientations, to not have to program gendered interactions differently based on whether you're playing as a male shepherd or a female shepherd. And it was just something that they could easily commit to, and it really, for BioWare, I think is a good example of the right way to do that. Also, it's the right way to do it for an open world game, the style of games they make. If you have it where in The Witcher 3, Geralt of Rivia could be gay or straight, and then that inherently would switch Triss Marigold and the other 2 or 3 female love interests that you could have picked from. If you had to animate them differently, or write the story differently, I think there's a problem there because it's based on the novels and it's based on an established character, Geralt of Rivia. And I think that's where BioWare probably succeeded more than anybody, is that their new series allowed them to play with the characters more than you can do with established characters. If you tried to say Mario from Mario Brothers was gay, people would be up in arms. But if Nintendo introduced a new gay character to the Mario world, it would be less of a controversy. It'd still be a big controversy because it's directed towards children. And honestly, all the characters in the Nintendo universe, for the most part, are not gay nor straight. They are clearly asexual, or perhaps just so straight, so subtle about it that it doesn't matter. But yeah, let's move on from that. I got into a rant, and we've done everything for the Asian account. So I guess if we get everything done before we finish the news, we're moving over to the European account. We'll probably just play ranked play. I guess that works. Maybe over the course of the development of BioWare's history, maybe there is this point where story just got boiled down and got boiled down and got boiled down to the point where there was no strong story being told, and that's where you end up with Mass Effect Andromeda. That seems like that could have been the case, but that still wasn't the main complaint about Mass Effect Andromeda. Mass Effect Andromeda was just buggy. Alright, so now we need quite a lot of wins. Priest wins, Warlock wins, Druid wins, or Hunter wins. Let's go with Hunter to start off with. Do we want to play a little ranked? Let's just play a little mid-range Hunter ranked. So let's move off that story. Eurogamer has a story. Kingdom Hearts 3 will be 80 plus hours of content. If about 30 hours of content, I heard, if you just stick to the main path. But if you no, in this article it actually says 40 to 50 hours if you stay on the critical path. That's bigger than what I heard last time this was reported on, and 80 hours if you do the mini games. Which, in that one sentence, this is an incredibly short article. I'm out. I fold this poker game of ever playing Kingdom Hearts as a series. Like, no. I found Kingdom Hearts 1 too long, didn't finish that. I never played Kingdom Hearts 2, didn't do any of the spin-offs or side stories. It feels like what they're doing is something along the lines of trying to make games that are incredibly long so that they can then chop it up and resell it, which is no narrative delivery method I've ever seen work. I've never really seen somebody write a long novel that's like 1,000 pages long and then try to break it up into 4 shorter novels after it's been released. The Harry Potter series, arguably you could say maybe you could do something like that if the Harry Potter series had been released as one long book first and then broken up. But yeah, that's never happened to my knowledge. Similarly, in movies, music, and TV, none of those have ever been broken up after they've been released. There have been some incidences where things have been broken up from a movie into episodes for a TV series in pre-production before anybody saw it, but I've never seen it. I've never seen it like that. I've never seen even other video game series do that. It always goes the other way. It's like, let's combine 3 short old games into one remake. Like Darksiders is a good example of that. Once they get Darksiders 4 out, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a thought to say, hey, let's just add all 4 of these games together, do a lot of editing, and have one epic game. But yeah, I'm done with Kingdom Hearts as a series. This story was broken by Geek.com, which I don't know if I talked about it, but I've kind of realized that I've probably never really been a geek or a nerd. That was really just something that was put on as a label by other people, and I just accepted it. Probably shouldn't have, even then. But it never, I think, really is a fair term to describe me. I don't think it's a fair term to really describe anybody, because it's just not what makes me me. Although I have seen some people that are just super obsessive about one thing, and I used to be pretty obsessive about one thing. Heck, I still am about video games, but I try to be more broad and have other interests nowadays. So it kind of made more sense. But also, what the word geeks and nerds means these days are certainly not what they meant when I was a kid and being called it as an insult. Now it's become very fashionable to call yourself a geek and nerd and be into a few things. There's a lack of effort, certainly, to be a fan of something these days. But I wanted to see who runs Geek.com. Apparently PC Mag is owned by the same company. Ziff Davis. It's a Ziff Davis. So, what is Ziff Davis doing these days? Mashable, Everyday Health, Tech...
I wonder.
Tech something. I can't even read it. PC Mag, IGN, Toolbox. Maybe I should follow IGN on Twitter. I think I probably do, and I probably just muted them. I guess inherently, of the Ziff Davis things, I should just stick with PC Magazine as much as I complain about that. That's the most focused thing to be to what I cover is with PC games. So yeah, I don't think Geek.com needs to be a new news source. And And I really haven't heard of it breaking any other stories, so maybe it's kind of new. 3 damage. How about we do this, this, and this. Gematsu has an article, Digimon Survive teaser trailer and gameplay, and there's an update about Xbox One and PC versions. Let's see, where's the update put on this? Yeah, the update is at the bottom, where generally speaking they put the updates at the top of articles so people actually see it. That's a indicator. Do they want you to actually see the update or not? And ideally, I think you want the update to be seen. Update the traditional Chinese version of the teaser trailer reveals that Digimon Survive will also be released for Xbox One and PC via Steam outside of Japan. A localization announcement will likely happen soon. So we have a teaser trailer here showing this Digimon Survive game is a tile-oriented turn-based RPG. It doesn't look terrible. It is a little weird looking at Digimon monsters fight, though. Like, it's been so long since I've seen anything Digimon that the characters stand out as, oh yeah, they used to look like that. And then there's also a drama part for the teaser trailer. And let's see what this is. It seems like it's kind of a visual novel-y type thing, but with some movement. Seems like maybe they've programmed it in an interesting way. This is a cool idea for visual novels. Like, you stand in one spot and you can sort of tilt or spin around in the spot that you are standing to look at things, and then click on those things to go there. Although, yeah, it's like a full-on camera thing where you can spin around and lock on things. The main character that's talking doesn't look like any of the characters from the Digimon cartoons. And he's talking to another character. In fact, both of the characters look rather old in comparison to the Digimon crews. Like that first season, all the kids were rather young, and then they did do an interesting thing to make the first generation of kids grow up a little bit, so they went from like late elementary school to middle school, where these characters look like they're in high school, and the trailer seems like they're in some kind of abandoned high school, so I'm half wondering if this is a story set in some kind of a post-apocalypse world. It's kind of weird that the kids' cartoon got older, and then a lot of the more later adult animes have animated the characters to look younger, cuter, more moe as they call it. In the visual novel drama sections, it seems like every now and then a Digimon, which is standing next to the characters, will speak up, and the camera will tilt down, and you'll see them talking. That's interesting. If this is voice acted, then that's going to be really great too. Seems like there's a main trailer, teaser trailer. Those two were gameplay trailers. Like 3 different trailers. I'm not sure what it really adds to the Digimon story if you're in a post-apocalyptic scenario. Digimon was one of the, probably not one of the first isekai, another world anime shows to ever be made, but it's probably a notable early style of shows like that where the kids went to a different world and basically time didn't pass, or it passed very slowly in the real world, and they were using all these Digimon to fight and going on adventures. So yeah, it seems like an odd mix of genres, and the teaser trailer does really nothing but tease, as the name says. I'd like to see Digimon come to PC though, like in the same way that I would like to see that there was, at some day there would be a good Ghost in the Shell game on PC, which there was a moderately good one that came out recently, but not good enough to justify or maintain the player base that it needed because it was a first-person shooter Overwatch style game. I doubt we're gonna get a Digimon resurgence. We may be close to an anniversary, but it will certainly hit the nostalgia feels of some people. People who may have watched it when they were kids and now have kids of their own. Let's see, moving on, Your Gamer has an article. Bandai Namco reveals 20 plus minutes of Code Vein gameplay. Anytime you see 20 plus minutes, or I'd say anytime you see any amount of time mentioned of gameplay, you're probably going to get a Japanese presentation that is somebody standing on a stage showing the gameplay. In this instance, at least, they have done the kind thing of taking up at least 80% of the screen with the gameplay footage. I have seen it as bad as a quarter of the screen is shown as gameplay footage, and then the rest of it is used to show just the people on stage playing the game or talking over the game. In this instance, there's a border in the bottom and right, and it seems like the clips are broken up. As for what I'm really getting out of this without actually watching all 20 minutes of it, looks like Code Vein is working to be a game. It's got a very heavy demand on it, an unfair demand on it, certainly, of outdoing or doing a better job at and being a better game than Dark Souls, because this is the, if I remember correctly, the creators of Dark Souls moving on to a new thing. Or maybe it was Bloodborne. Code Vein is a vampire. Vampires in a post-apocalypse fighting other vampires. There's more to it. It's weird, definitely. It's very Japanese, anime-esque, and because of all of those elements, there's a lot of chance that this is not going to work. You almost feel the thought here from the creators that, well, Dark Souls was a clearly designed for a Japanese audience game to be super hard and brutally punishing. Let's make something else that's clearly for a Japanese audience and see if we can catch lightning in the bottle a second time and convince the rest of the world to actually play a niche game. I'm not sure that's really going to work here. The bright colors are going to be the thing that probably kills Code Vein when you see these characters in bright, colorful clothing and crazy fashion while still playing a lot like Dark Souls, it seems. I'm watching a boss fight right now, and it is definitely trying to get back behind him and backstab. It's definitely fighting bosses. But unlike a Dark Souls boss where you might be fighting a golem or something, what they're fighting is this long flowing white haired anime girl that's twice as tall as all the other characters and wearing like white silk thigh-high stockings and a corset basically, and she's swinging and kind of, I wouldn't say pole dancing, but spinning on a giant spear, which that too is just a little bit different. And I think inherently for the Dark Souls crowd, you're going to have this ever diminishing fan base of, well, this isn't the Dark Souls I knew and loved, so I'm not gonna like it. Apparently that character was called the Greater Lost, or a Greater Lost. And when that character was defeated, just like in Dark Souls, it put the red text on top. This really is a question: is Dark Souls cool because of the world it established, or is Dark Souls cool because of the gameplay mechanic? Because that's really all they're keeping, is they're slightly tweaking, I imagine, the gameplay mechanic, but they're changing the world completely. And it seems like you might be able to have AI companions in this game, which that certainly would be an interesting improvement to the Dark Souls series, instead of having to summon people and deal with other players. Like, I generally didn't like the way the concepts were implemented or even introduced in Dark Souls, where people could come in and harass you, or you had to get people to help you because it was so difficult. Moving on, PC Gamer has an article. Monster Garden is a combat-free RPG about about how to be an emotionally stable adult, which is an interesting concept. It's an itch.io game. I assume that this is supposed to be something along the lines of a statement about all the violence in games, or perhaps a statement in general of what is that other game that came out a few years ago that was rather popular? Well, whatever. But inherently, I think the video game industry itself is going to have to really come together and think about ways to make less violent games and not just have random people try it. The fact that Super Mario Odyssey still can't get away from violence is a weird testament. The fact that even Portal really couldn't get away from violence is a testament. We still very much desire, as a video game community, and expect boss battles and fights and conflict. And maybe it should be that way. Like, maybe this is something that are just the human carnal nature desires. Is we're all from cavemen who would hunt and kill animals, and we're not doing that anymore. So we need to get those deep latent desires out of our out in some kind of healthy manner. And I certainly don't want the entire industry to be 100% free of violence, but I would like to see it get to like 20%, where it's more puzzle games. A lot of times it doesn't seem like it makes the most sense to have gameplay mechanics that are so focused on violence and nothing else. That's kind of why I like point-and-click adventures. As for this game, Monster Garden, it just looks horrible. It is on Steam, and it's 100% positive with 32 reviews. Came out February 8th. But, oh man, I could not play it. It just is MS Paint level graphics of characters that are these weird alien shapes. Yeah, if somebody showed me this and they were animating it, I'd be like, I don't know what you're drawing here. Are you crazy? Is this what the world looks like to you? Is this some kind of weird cartoon? It's just so unrelatable to me. And inherently, I would argue, if you're drawing the characters to look unrelatable, and your story is about a game being combat-free and non-violent, I assume non-violent because it's combat-free. I guess it could be violent in other ways. Theoretically, you could make a game that's combat-free, but then it's incredibly violent because things just happen to you to hurt you or other people. But it's combat-free because you can't even fight back in the game. But if you're trying to make a game that's passive, and you'd also want to make it relatable visually, and they failed to do that, in my opinion. We've got an article here from Eurogamer. Square Enix shows off Shadow of the Tomb Raider's improved climbing techniques. Let's watch this. We haven't gotten to a lot of Steam games. There's a group of them coming up, however.
Your magic shall not save you.
I think I may have already seen this video. Yeah, I'm not sure it actually shows anything that's really even that interesting. There is definitely a case here of, yeah, it seems like it's just an iteration on what was in Rise of the Tomb Raider. I don't know if it's the idea that they are trying to replace the acrobatics, the backflips, the superhumanness of the old Lara Croft with slightly more realistic abilities to climb and move through the area. But yeah, I kind of just would prefer if they were just doing the old way. I think Lara Croft needs to be a tongue-in-cheek type game series always, and less realistic. I think you need to bring back the absurdity. I think you need to bring back the dinosaurs. Let her do side flips and wheelbarrows and backflips and in any point in the game, not at very specific points. The thing here is they're making this new Lara Croft Nathan Drake, and I've said this before, lots of people have, where we don't need another Nathan Drake, or honestly, if they wanted to make a new Nathan Drake game, that's fine, but that's just not what Lara Croft should be.
Beetleberries, my favorite.
You'd probably do well if you had introduced a secondary character, like add another female protagonist to the Lara Croft universe, have Lara Croft do what Lara Croft always did, and then have this new character be the apprentice, be the kid, the new person on the team. That would have worked, I think, pretty well in the Tomb Raider reboot to say, all right, this is the girl that's gonna have to really struggle, where Laura is going to be off doing her own adventure and managing just that well. I suppose that's also what the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull tried to do, and very possibly is going to try to do in the next Indiana Jones movie that's being made, but it didn't succeed.
I can see.
I think it works a little bit better in games, though. I'm thinking something along the lines of how Cain and the Legacy of Cain series introduced new characters, the new character of Lynch, or, you know, maybe more simply, like how the Western release of Super Mario Bros. 2 introduced different playstyles and different characters of Luigi and the Princess and the Toadstool, who you could play as in the same game. Whereas before, Super Mario Brothers and all the previous Mario games really had just Mario's playstyle, and Mario, even as early as Super Mario Bros. 2, had an established playstyle and an established character.
I greet you.
Imagine if they tried to reboot Mario and he was missing, at this point, the ability to double jump, triple jump. He could certainly lose the hat ability, and he'll almost certainly lose that anyways in the next game. But if he didn't have the ability to break bricks or stomp on Goomba's heads,
Was a mistake.
or swim or climb, like, you really couldn't do that with Mario and it feel right, and that's kind of what they did with Lara Croft. A very capable character lost all of her capabilities in the reboot. I don't know why I'm talking about it so much though. It just keeps coming up. I guess because there's keep on making ones. We've got a game on Steam called Chill Out. It seems like it's a paper airplane simulation game. Let's see. In this little game, you can really relax flying between the houses, which are illuminated by rays of the morning sun. So it may not be even much of a game. It's tagged as an indie casual racing simulation. This doesn't actually look like a relaxing game, so they've failed to meet the premise. It looks like it's actually a pretty fast-paced game, and when you're playing as a paper airplane flying between buildings with sun rays in your face, which is eventually going to get tiring on your eyes and annoying, and you're also trying to hit these golden rings to collect points. This is clearly an experiment of a game, and hardly what you would call a full experience. It's 30% off for 69 cents. It's inherently not as bad as many other games I've seen, but it isn't anything other than what you would call a minigame. I could see this as an opening cutscene to a much bigger game. I could see it as a mini game that you in the middle of a game for some just comedic falling action. It looks pretty enough, but I imagine you could easily have made this game with Unity assets. It's the first game from the developer. I don't know how that helps anymore, so probably I'm not gonna deal with that. Let's see, we've got a game called Jelly Wrestle. That's JELLY WRESTLE. It's, I believe, another one of these games where it's player versus player. No, actually it's all single player. So you can customize this jelly-like character, and then you're not wrestling. They've got the title wrong. This is clearly a 2D fighter, well, 3D fighter on a 2D plane. I
hunt alone.
Like you have health bars and what looks like energy bars at the top. It's totally the wrong name. Let's see, 10% off for $2.69. It's from a game company called Fury Games Production, the developer of several random assorted games that I think are mostly low effort games. One is called Bitcoin Mining Tycoon, Pro Gaming Tycoon. School Idol is the only game they have, and it's rated 22% positive. So it's failing on some very basic levels. So yeah, I don't even know if you'd call this developer making extremely low effort games. They're just making low effort games, if I was to make a distinction there. Speaking of extremely low effort games, we have My First Music Workshop on Steam, which is a very ugly looking laid out interface where the concept of the game isn't bad. You're running a music workshop to repair different types of instrument, I believe. I'm seeing guitars. Maybe you only repair guitars. But I mean, even a repair shop that repairs just guitars would be an actual shop, I imagine somebody has. Maybe. And it is also possible that in the real world there's such a glut of guitars and such that it's not very few actually get repaired. My First Music Workshop is 40% off for $2.99. It's way too expensive. If this interface looked a lot better, that would make sense. And of course, first game by that developer. Next game we have on Steam is called SUM, and it's a VR game, and it is basically a survival game like so many other survival games. Graphics don't look terrible, but inherently asset flip games now have just gotten to the point where they never do. So that's an issue. Let's hit that one. Do I want to kill this? Yeah, I don't think there's room in my life for any more survival games. I think Minecraft was it, and I'm good with that. $13.99 for some, and VR only, so that's definitely a problem. Single player only, that's definitely a problem. If somebody is going to make a survival game, it's going to have to look very different. We'll include multiplayer, include modding, and include just a really big and happy fan base. Let's see, this is an article nobody needs to actually talk about. And I think I've got a victory, and then we'll wrap up this recording because it's been about an hour. It's been over an hour. Yeah, I'm looking at a ugly looking MS Paint top-down shooter, space shooter called Space Hood Sola 2. I'm gonna break this streak as I just reached rank 19. Which that kind of sucks. But I was gonna have to break the streak, I think, anyways, because I need to move over to the Priest or Warlock, and those victories are gonna probably be more difficult. Space Hood Sola is 33% off for 66 cents. I don't see any reason why people would want to buy it. The Space Hood Sola 1 came out May 15th, 2018, and it has no reviews. Speaking of no reviews, I went through my wish list and tried to filter a lot of games that have recently been added. I've gone back to the beginning of the year, which feels about the time I started looking at every single game. And if it was one of these games that nobody really talked about, I started to look to see if in the past few months anybody had reviewed it and if it was above mixed reviews, basically. But I was also being pretty generous in keeping mixed reviews. That's putting a lot of faith into Steam reviews, particularly of when there's often only 10 or 20 reviewers who are bothering to review games on Steam anyways. But it did allow me to eliminate quite a few games, as there's just always this constant issue now of the wish list growing bigger and bigger. So yeah, I don't think I need to do it every week, but maybe every 3 or 4 weeks I need to probably just go through the recently added to my wish list and say, okay, this game that I added with no reviews now has reviews and it's 20% positive, and I was iffy about it even at the beginning. There clearly are a lot of hidden gems still on Steam, and I don't know how you fix that so more people know about the hidden gems. Maybe you don't fix it at all, or maybe you totally fix it. I don't know, but that is something I'm certainly thinking about. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. Stay tuned if you're watching live. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.